Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of The Addict's Unintelligible Truth. My name is Alex, and unfortunately I don't have Taylor with me today. One of her kids ended up being sick, so it's just going to be me. Today we have a special guest with us. We used to work together before, and I don't know if we ever really spoke about our addictions at work, but I mean, I see your posts on Facebook, and I'm sure you see mine about being in sobriety and whatnot. So if you just want to give us like a rundown, like what your drug of choice was, introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Kathy Durner, and my drug of choice was meth.
Okay, and how many years were you on meth?
From the time I was 21 until I was 29.
Wow, so that's a pretty long time.
Pretty long time.
And how long have you been in sobriety?
Going on 4 years.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah, I was only in meth for a couple of years, maybe 3 at most.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a hell of a drug.
Oh, it is.
And it does not care who you are.
No, it does not.
To describe what your life was like prior to drugs?
Prior to drugs, my mother was married to a very abusive husband who was an alcoholic, who abused my mother, tried to sexually abuse me. She was with him for 14 years, so we went through it all with this man. I mean, and seeing that, I got into abusive relationships back to back.
Thinking that it was okay.
And one of them was a heroin addict, and I tried heroin when I was 22. Was when I was with him. I tried it when I was 22 and I didn't like it. But he ended up watching him OD all the time kind of just steered me away from that.
Right.
I didn't, have to bring him back to life.
Right.
Like, I won't be around it, so.
Right. So do you think that you getting with him is what led you into doing other drugs? Or?
Well, getting with him is what led me into shooting up drugs.
Got you.
Yeah.
How old were you the first time that you tried any drug? I mean, even if it was marijuana, pills.
Marijuana, I was 16. And then I skipped the whole pill trend and just went straight into the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay. So you were 16 whenever you smoked weed. Was it the entire time from 16 until you started using the harder drugs, or what was the time frame like within there?
I smoked weed pretty much up until I started the hard stuff. And that's when I was like...
So about 5 years.
So about 5 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So was it... I mean, obviously with your ex-boyfriend being on heroin and stuff, do you think that being around him and his friends is what introduced you into doing meth? Because you said his was heroin.
Yeah.
So where did meth get introduced into it?
Unfortunately, when I was 21, I had my daughter. And her dad went to prison, and I started stripping at the Hideaway. And then I just kind of got introduced to it through there.
It was like a snowball effect.
It was just a snowball effect after that.
So... describe because whenever you first used it, you didn't instantly start shooting up, right?
Oh, no.
So what other ways did you use it? Did you just snort it?
I smoked it.
Yeah,
I smoked it, did hot rails, all that jazz.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And then I want to say 22, almost about 23, when the boyfriend that did heroin at the time, the one that I was with, was like, oh, hey, well, let's try it this way. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did, and unfortunately, it just went downhill after that.
So can you describe, like, what your life was in the beginning stages of it? I mean, I know you said that he was abusive to you. And
yeah, in the beginning, he was abusive. In the beginning, he was very controlling, loved to isolate me. I wasn't allowed to go hang out with my friends. When he was a paranoid schizophrenic, so when he would do meth, it just made it 10 times worse. Or when he was coming off heroin, it was 10 times worse.
Yeah.
He was more abusive, constantly accusing me of cheating, even though I was literally up his butt the whole time.
Right.
And I was with him on and off for I want to say 4 years, because it was kind of like I'd get in a new relationship, it would end. He was kind of like, I don't want to say my safes, but my backup.
Right. Because I always had him on the back burner.
Because I was at that point in time, I didn't want to be alone.
Right.
Because I had kids. I had my first kid when I was 18, and then I had my daughter, and then I had my third son. And at that time, my kids were seeing me being abused.
Right.
And finally, I was like, okay, enough's enough. I can't allow my kids to see this anymore.
You felt like you were kind of repeating history.
Repeating history, and I don't want my kids to do that.
Right.
Grow up and be like that. So I was like, enough's enough. And I got away from him, but it was always still, I would get away from him for a couple months, and he would do the, oh, I love you, I've changed, I'm clean, I'm not going to do this again. And it was back at square one every time.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at least she finally realized and got away from that,
Oh, yeah.
So how would you describe, this might kind of go in hand with the last question I asked, but describe like your beginning stages of addiction. Like, what was your mind frame like? What kept you going back to it? You know what I mean?
And like I said, from the time I was 18 until I met my current husband, I was a single mother. So I don't really say it. I use it as an excuse because, I'm tired, so just let me do a little bit. So I have the energy to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just want to put it out there, my kids never seen me do anything.
Right.
Never.
Right.
But it was still bad enough being high around my kids.
Right.
But it was mainly, and it's like I said, it's not an excuse. It was just that in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I'm coming down, so I can't take care of my kids if I fall out.
Right.
So I need to get high again. So I just use that as an excuse to keep getting high.
Right. So do you think that you were instantly addicted to it, or did you think that it was just like, oh, well, I can quit whenever I want?
Oh, no, I was instantly. It was as soon as I took my first hit off that meth pipe, it was over. And I knew it because I liked it too much.
Yeah.
It gave me energy when I was tired, and I could do things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was that first, like, I do not like downers. I do not.
I didn't either.
Do not like them. I'd rather be through the roof, spot cleaning a house.
Yeah.
Before I will just sit there and do the non-nuts.
Right, yeah. I agree with you on that. I was never one for downers either. I was always like, I like the energy that it gave me.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the weight loss that came with it wasn't bad. Because I've always struggled with being a bigger girl.
Me too.
The weight drops like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're also thinking like, oh my gosh, is my face going to change a lot? Am I going to have picking scabs on me? Am I going to lose my teeth? Am I going to, it's just all these thoughts in your head.
Yep.
And that's probably the scariest part. Thinking of all the things.
Yeah. Luckily, I wasn't the picking kind. I didn't pick. I just cleaned. I was like, it was a whole clean fest. Like, you come to my house, you knew when I was high because I was
it was spotless.
Yeah.
You could eat off the damn floor.
Yeah, for sure.
So aside now, going from that, what do you think, or not what do you think, but what were some of your consequences of doing drugs, continuing to do them?
Seeing it, I missed, and I hope this is for a lot of parents that are sober, but I don't remember the years that I was on meth, and when I still had my kids, I don't remember their first walking, their first talking, or their first everything. I feel like I missed it, and I have a 14-year-old now.
Right.
And during them crucial years of his life, mommy was high.
Right.
And he's 14. I couldn't hide it from him. He
Right.
knew something was up.
Right.
And I think that right there is my biggest regret. I can honestly say I do not remember.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I was high for so long, and then when I got sober, I finally woke up, and it's like, oh my God, my kids have changed so much.
Right.
And that's the one thing that really gets to me still.
Right. Well, and I also think, like, with meth, it does that to your brain to begin with. It's like, say if I was to use like yesterday or something,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to remember what I did yesterday.
Exactly, that's the way I was.
It's like time is fleeting and you
Mm-hmm.
can't remember anything.
Nope.
And I have a hard time remembering things that happened to me whenever I was in addiction.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's like you can remember being at a certain place, but you can't remember the details. It's so foggy.
Mm-hmm.
What finally made you get sober? Was there anything in particular? Did you go to jail or anything?
I lost my kids. And I lost them. And then even still, after losing them, I didn't want to go on anymore because my kids were my world. But also at that point, I knew I wasn't being the best parent that I could be for my children.
Right.
And sad to say, and I had to come to grips with this, that I chose drugs over my kids.
Yeah.
Which I said in the very beginning of my addiction, I will never do. I will never be that parent. Well, I became that parent, and I lost my kids in March of 2020. I was 21 is when I lost my kids. And I lost them for a year and a half, and even then, I was still using. And then I got arrested with 2 girls that had stuff on them and threw it in my clothes basket and told the cops it was mine. And they still go around saying that I snitched on them, but I didn't.
You're the one that did the time.
Yeah, one girl got possession of marijuana when the meth was hers.
Right.
And me and the other girl both got possession of meth charges. And one went to rehab. Well, both of them went to rehab, and I got sentenced to a year of house arrest and a year of probation. I was doing good first on house arrest, and then people started coming back around. I'm like, oh, well, I can use on house arrest.
Yeah.
Well, no, you really can't, because when they call you in, they called me in for 2 randoms, and the 2 randoms that they called me in, I had just used, and I knew I was going to test dirty. And they sent me back to jail for 3 weeks. I got out, continued to use with my husband now. And then one day I just looked at him and I'm like, listen, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I want my kids back. I said, you can either come with me or you can stay. And he said, I'm going with you. And we've been clean ever since.
Wow. I got cold chills. I'm not even lying. I got cold chills. That's awesome. I mean, the fact that you both were willing to wake up and realize, like, something's got to change.
We had it. And, you know, it's I feel bad because it took so long for me to finally just be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just, I woke up and he woke up and I was just like, dang, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And we left where we were at and went back to my mom's house and got clean and been better ever since.
Right.
So we haven't relapsed once.
So I know for like in my situation, I mean, in my episode, I even said like jail literally probably saved me.
Yeah.
Maybe not the first time I went, but definitely getting the PTRs that saved me.
Yep.
Are you on the same stance as that, or do you think that maybe?
Yeah, I am. Even though when I went back for the 3 weeks of my house arrest, when I got back out, I want to say me and him used for a good, I want to say, month. But it was always in the back of my mind because I had started my probation.
Right.
That, okay, I'm going to get a PTR or I'm going to end up going back to jail and I'm going to lose my kids for good.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was like, okay, yeah, I can't. I can't do this anymore. Waking up, having to be like, okay, when's my next high? Or how am I going to get money to get high again?
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Well, and then on top of that, you know, you have your court fees that you're constantly having to pay, and if you're behind on those, then they can take you to jail for that.
Exactly.
And then also, I feel like the drug screens, they keep you accountable, but at the same time, they also make you feel like a child. Yeah. Because you're always having to check in with somebody. But I guess whenever you're in addiction, that's kind of what you need.
Yeah.
Because if not, you would just go right back to using.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear somebody else's perspective that agrees that, you know, jail probably was the best bet for them.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people just down it. You know what I mean? They're like, it doesn't do anything. It gets you.
It's like it's fun to them to go to jail.
I'm like, if you go in there with the right state of mind,
exactly.
Like you want this to be your final time, you want to go home and never go back, then it'll work for you. Yeah. But if you're just going in there because you know the drugs are still in there,
exactly,
then there's no point. You're never going to learn your lesson.
Exactly.
So what was your life like during your beginning stages of sobriety for you and your now husband?
It was, I'm not going to say it was easy. It was tough. Yeah. Because at that time we both were working at CAP. And he was on first at first and I was on thirds. But, you know, at that time I was dealing with CPS to get my kids back. Right. And that just wasn't working for my visits. So, it was rough at first, because even working at CAP, you see people, you know, coming out of the bathroom, jaws just a-going. Right. And it was really hard at first. But I think once we got past, I want to say maybe the 3-month mark, it was, I'm not going to say it was totally easy. There were sometimes it was hard because at that point, I don't know if you've had them like the using dreams, as I call them, like dreams of you using. Yeah. I was real. Yeah. And I was still having those and they felt real to me and I'd wake up in a panic. Right. But I mean, once I knew that we were in our end stages of getting my kids back and we had moved down to my mom's, got our own apartment. And well, when I found out we were pregnant with my youngest daughter, is what just set it home for me. Right. Because me and my husband had tried for a long time to have a baby, and when we finally found out that, hey, guess what, we're having a baby, I mean, it was a no-brainer for us. We wanted the best life for our kids. And it gave you kind of a boost of confidence, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Like, we can do this. We can totally do this. Oh, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So, what was your support system like during your sobriety? Obviously, you guys had each other. Oh, yeah. Were there other factors that helped? Chris is pretty much my rock. Yeah. He really holds me accountable to my actions. And also my mom, even through my addiction, my mother... She loved us. You know, me and my brother both were in active addiction at the same time. And she loved us through it, no matter what. She was there. I mean, we treated her like crap when we were coming down. Right. And would steal stuff. But my mom never failed. She was always there in our corner.
Well, I was going to say, I see her all the time with you guys out and about. I can tell you guys are buddies.
Oh, yeah, that's I still call her my mommy.
Yeah, I do too, my mom. That's how it mom. Is. Yeah. What would you say getting sober has changed in your life? I mean, obviously everything. Everything. But, like, if you want to shout out some good things that have happened during it?
Getting married to my husband, having our daughter, being able to afford things for my children, and buying my first house. Yeah, we bought our first house. And that's a big thing for me because I went from living with my mother all the time and having my kids to having nothing, not having my kids sleep, couch surfing, to now I have my own home and get to wake up in my own home and my kids are happy and my husband's happy. And that's just the best thing for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing whenever you're in addiction, you don't think of like what life could be like once you get clean. Because I mean, of course, everybody remembers what their childhood was like. Mm-hmm. And, you know, once you're in addiction, it's like you forget everything. You're just like, this is my life. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And then once you get clean, you're like, holy cow, all these different opportunities open for you. Oh, yeah. And it's like you don't miss out on the little things anymore. No. You're always there for everything. Do you regret your addiction?
I do. Just in standpoint with my kids. My mom, I mean, like I said, we put my mom through hell. She would be sitting on the back porch, hear sirens or ambulances or cops, and she would instantly call us. Right. Because she was afraid that it was me or my brother. So, I mean, I don't miss the needing it. so much. I don't miss the people it brought around, the so-called friends, and just the empty feeling that I felt when I was in active addiction. I think that's when I felt more alone than ever, was when I in active addiction, and I had more people around me than ever.
Right.
But
you know that none of them actually gave a crap about you.
None of them gave a shit whether I lived or died.
Right. You were just, I mean, in my case, I was usually the one that had the money for the drugs, so they were just happy that I was there.
And in my case, I was living, it looked like a trap house. I was living in a house where, they could come stay and do what they wanted to do.
And knew that nobody was going to say anything.
And knew that nobody was going to say anything.
Yeah.
And and then once I got sober, it's like, where'd you go?
Yeah, where y'all at?
Where you at?
Right.
Why would you do?
But in the same hand, I'm kind of grateful that those people aren't around me anymore, like in my stance, because I feel like that would have made it that much harder to stay clean.
Oh yeah, once clean. My grandma told me something one time that stays with me forever, and God rest her soul. She said, in the end, everyone that is not for you leaves.
Yeah.
So you need to think about who you want in your circle, because the people in your circle now are not going to be there when you're doing good.
Right.
They're going to wish that you were doing bad again.
That's exactly true.
And I still hold that very dear to me. I literally have 2 best friends and my husband and my mom and my brothers. That's it. Like that's how it is. All I want in my life, and if they're in active addiction and if they want help, yes, I'll help you get clean. Yeah, I will be that person to help you and hold you accountable. Yeah. But I'm not going to sit there and watch you be in active addiction and risk losing everything that my husband has built. Like, I'm just not doing it. Mm-mm.
Yeah. If they know that you're in addiction, or if you're recovering from addiction, they should know better than to even have you around them if they're still choosing to use. Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, if you said it in front of me right now, yes, I know I have the willpower to say no, but also there's still that temptation. Yeah. It's that, I'll just do it this one time. I'll just do it that one time, yeah. It won't matter. Yeah. And that's not actually the case. No. Because all it takes is that one time. Yep. And you'll be right back into it. Now, see, with me, I regret my addiction in a sense, but in another hand, it's like, no, I don't, because it's like, now I have this knowledge to help others, which I'm sure you agree with that. Yes. Yours is just because of the kids. Yeah. You hated missing out on all of that. And I'm sure if I had kids, I'd be the same exact way. But I also think that a lot of people look down even on recovered addicts because they're like, well, they were still an addict. Oh, yeah. But who's going to help your child whenever they're the one going through addiction? Nobody should cast stones. Everyone is addicted to something. If it's vaping, cigarettes, pot, pills, meth, heroin, phones, anything. Everybody in America is addicted to something in some way, or has been addicted to something in some way. Yeah. So, for instance, a family member of mine was getting clean. And me and this family were very close. And he went through similar of what I went through. But in the background, he always had other family members saying, I can't believe you're doing this, or judging him for that, when I know for a fact each and every person that was harping him and telling him he's a bad person was addicted to some kind of form of drug at one point in time in their life. Right. They have skeletons too. Yeah. And at no point in time do I ever hold myself on a pedestal, because it could be tomorrow and I could relapse. It could be 6 months from now and I could relapse and I could be back at square one. Yep. But I'm going to hold myself accountable for my actions. Right. And I'm not going to judge somebody that's in active addiction. Right. You're in active addiction, and if you're not ready to get clean, well, guess what? Call me when you're ready. Right. And exactly. We'll do this together. I'll help you. I think that's the issue with a lot of people that are in active addiction and maybe thinking about getting clean, is they're just afraid of the backlash that they're going to get from people finally finding out that they're in addiction. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly. And I don't think that you should ever be afraid of that. If you're wanting to get clean, go for it.
Exactly.
The only person that you're letting down by still using is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're ruining literally everything.
Yep.
So that brings me to my next question. Do you have any words of advice for somebody that's going through active addiction that's wanting to get clean?
My advice would be, you'll know when you're ready. If you still think at the end of the day, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to try to get clean. I'm not going to use tomorrow. But in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, well, this person shows up, hey, I'm going to use.
Right.
Wait until you're ready.
Yeah.
You'll know when you're ready.
Yeah, because...
Don't let people force you.
Right, because they can't... You, like, say if I had a friend that was in active addiction, I can't want them to get clean more than they want to get clean.
Exactly.
They have to want it with everything in their being. Because if not, you're wasting your time, you're wasting the people's time that's wanting to help you.
Exactly.
And it's going to end up in you relapsing.
And that's one thing with my mom. When I was in active addiction, and she would tell me, CJ, please get clean. And I would straight look at her in her face, and I told her, I am not ready to get clean.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to stop.
Yeah. And that's how it was with me, too. And it's so hard, too, like, thinking back now. Because some of the things obviously stick out in your mind more, memory-wise. Having to see my mom's face and her heart break.
Yes.
Whenever you tell them that.
Yes.
And so now I feel like I'm constantly telling my mom, I am so sorry for what I put you through. I am sorry that you had to deal with that.
Yes, I tell my mom that all the time.
It's like I'm an endless pit of apologies because it's just, you felt like you've done so much wrong and you just need to make up for it.
Oh, yes.
And no matter how many times, my mom will tell me, it's okay, sis. Like, I know you're better now. It's just, I feel like it's still not enough.
It's just like that. It's like a pop-up memory of, okay, well, I said this to her that one time. And even though I've been clean for as long as I have been, I still have them.
Yeah.
I still have, I said this to my mother, and I'll call my mom, like, you know what, I'm sorry for saying that to you.
Yeah.
And my mom told me, she said, honey, the hardest thing that a mother can ever do is love her child that is addicted.
Yeah.
And she said, but luckily I loved you all the way through it.
Yeah.
And my mom tells me every day how proud she is of me. My family that I didn't talk to for years, that didn't want anything to do with me because I was in active addiction, tell me that they're proud of me every day.
And isn't that amazing?
It is. It's amazing.
Because you think that whenever you're in the beginning stages of getting clean, you'll think, oh, they'll never be able to tell me that they were proud of me. All they're going to remember me by is me being addicted to something. And to finally hear them be like, I'm really proud of how far you've came and what you've accomplished. I can't even describe it.
It's amazing.
It is. And it's just like this. I guess whenever you're in addiction, you don't really feel love because you're so caught up in your addiction. But whenever you finally are out of it and you can hear people telling you, oh, I love you, I'm so proud of you, and all of these words of affirmation for you, it's like, holy cow.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what really helps, or it really helped me stay clean, was constantly having, like, my mom be like, sis, you can do this. You got this. Definitely. I'm proud of you. Don't give up now. It's just, it's nice to have people like that in your life, What about family members of people that have somebody like an addiction? So, like, say if there's somebody listening right now that has a daughter or a son or a cousin in addiction, what can you tell them to help them out?
I can just tell them what my mom did. Pray. That's all you can do is just pray for them and hope that you don't get that call in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I think that was the scariest time in my mom's life, was wondering if she was going to get the call. Just pray for them and love them. Don't shame them for being an addict. I don't want to say don't use tough love, because sometimes that you do have to use tough love.
Yeah.
But don't shame them. Don't put them down. Well, you're an addict, so you're beneath. I hate when people do that, especially people that are, at one point was an addict and they put the addict down for being an addict.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that at all, because you never know. Your words may cause that addict to just end their life.
Yeah. All it takes is
All
that one word.
Exactly, that
Yeah.
one word. And just pray and pray. I mean, that's just what my mom did for us. And eventually they'll wake up. Either I know I don't want to sound harsh, but either they get it or they don't.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is too.
They want to quit. No matter how much you want them to quit, they want to have to want it.
Right. Well, and also, like my mom always says, don't blame the people that are around them either, because, you got to blame that person as well. You know,
they're grown people.
Because they're the ones agreeing to do this stuff.
Yeah. It's not like they're shoving it down their throat.
Right. But in the same hand, you don't want to be like, you're never welcome around here ever again, even if you were to get sober, because what's the point for them to get sober?
It could be that night that they're like, okay, I'm done. I want to go home. And all they remember in the back of their mind is you told them not to come back.
Yeah. And that's all it takes.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And then you get a call that you never wish you got.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope that you enjoy what we had to say and really take CJ's story to heart. I know that she had probably a great time telling it, finally getting your story out there. Tune in on our Facebook page, our Instagram page, to figure out what our next move is. We'll have more episodes for you guys soon. Thank you.